The latest rankings came out, and it looks like UCLA has one of the toughest schedules out there in the country. But here's why the Bruins are still going to prove everybody wrong.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. It's your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for your support, everydayers. Where we get started today. UCLA is obviously in the thick of things in fall camp out in Costa Mesa, not on their campus. So playing what would probably be a little bit cooler weather, not playing on turf. So with this upcoming heat wave this week, it's not like the old days under Jim Mora going to San Bernardino, UCLA getting their field replaced, getting too many turf fields, a grass field that DeShaun Foster is ready, getting his team ready for what the Bruins are going to face playing the Rose Bowl, what they're going to face playing on the road this year. And now, with the latest USA Today rankings and what I've seen in Pro Football Focus, UCLA is one of the top 5 toughest schedules in the country. And here are some of the rankings to kind of back it up. Let's kind of go over this right now. So here are the overall rankings. So this is going to include teams in the top 25 and teams who are receiving votes, and it's a lot of them. UCLA this year is taking on the preseason number 2 reigning national champs Ohio State in mid-November in Columbus. That is the toughest game on the schedule. Now, there are some pieces Ohio State's changing around, so maybe they could have a shockingly bad year for their standards, but in all intents and purposes, that is the toughest game on the schedule. Then there's Penn State, which is UCLA's toughest home game on the schedule. Third in the country, a team that got to the Final Four, if you will, in college football in the CFP. And that's where we all dream as UCLA fans, where you look at the first few games and you're like, if UCLA can navigate game 1, game 2, game 3, start Big Ten playoff right, you've got 4-0 with a bye baked in there, and you're hosting Penn State in what should be a primetime showing in the Rose Bowl. Now they got to take care of business, but that's a dream scenario for our UCLA team, whose over-under in win total is 5.5. All right. And the dream is UCLA can manage with very low expectation from everybody else that the Bruins can get through the first 4 games, and then you play Penn State, the toughest home game on the schedule. So it's tough when you see the expected 2 teams out of the Big Ten, other than maybe Oregon, to make it to a college football playoff in this 12-team era. They're there. The Bruins do avoid Oregon. They avoid playing LSU like they did in the non-conference last year. No Illinois, no Michigan. And then you creep on down, and we've already talked with Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers that game later in the season against Indiana is a make-or-break point for both teams. Indiana, based on the reputation of last year, is top 19. But this time last year, nobody was talking about the Hoosiers. Nobody was talking about Kurt Cignetti. He's just a guy that had some quotes in a basketball gym about how much Purdue sucked, how much Ohio State sucked, how much whoever it was. It's about us, not them. And then they came out and trounced the Bruins in the Rose Bowl in the Bruins' second game of the year. It's like, okay, why can't UCLA do that with the influx of talent? Think of what the Bruins are doing right now, bringing in what could be a wonderkin in an offensive coordinator in Tino Sunseri. And if you've watched any interviews, you just see that he gets it, all right? Like, he just gets it. He's adapting his offense to the players, not to what the players have to adapt to him. And this is his first true chance at this level to run an offense, and he's given the player in Nico Iamaleava. He's got plenty of weapons on the outside. If he can work an offense and get just enough protection, this is a UCLA team that will be scoring, hopefully, more in line of in between 2022 UCLA and 2023 UCLA, not 2024 UCLA, all right? And mind you, the only difference there are quite a few differences between Chip Kelly's 22 and 23 teams. One, you had a veteran quarterback, veteran receiver, veteran running back, a solid offensive line. In 23, UCLA had a true freshman quarterback, some good receiving options, and an okay offensive line. They're not rolling with the true freshman quarterback. Now, Nico is in the same class as Dante, and you know how that went and how that's going. But Dante, he had to sit a year. He only played a few games. Nico played a couple of games, played that game late in Tennessee in his freshman year. In his redshirt freshman year, played for a team that went to the playoff in Columbus. I don't think he's going to be afraid of what UCLA has on their schedule, considering all the backlash of transferring from Tennessee. He's already got so much on his plate. I think he'll be just fine. And you bring in Javian Jet Thomas from Cal. You bring in all the talent UCLA has in the skill positions, working within the tight end. I think this is an offense that's going to click. So you got a couple of teams that are very tough, 3 teams in the top 20. Those are the only teams UCLA has in their schedule that are actually ranked in the preseason. And maybe you're saying, just phooey, get out of here. Stop talking about this. But you would respect 3 of those teams from the Big Ten made it to the CFP last year. Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana. All right? Okay? And we'll see how that goes. Receiving votes, USC. All right? That's just reputation. They didn't sneak in the top 25 as they generally do year in and year out. But after USC receiving votes, you've got Utah, which speaks to the importance of that Utah game, right? I already talked about it with JT Wistrcill of Locked On Utes. They've got Devin Dampier. They've got Kyle Whittingham, who's winding down as head coach. They've got the Cam Rising effect slowly moving away. But the Bruins can take down a team that you could argue is in the top 30 that could easily, in Utah, with a win or loss against UCLA in week 1, in a wide-open Big 12, still compete with the likes of Arizona State, Baylor's, and whoever is going to compete in the Big 12, because you just don't know who's going to be at the top of the Big 12 standings. That could be a big resume builder and booster for a UCLA program searching for a true identity under DeShaun Foster. He's instilling his principles, but you get a big win week 1 against Utah. That says a lot. You go a little bit further down the line, you see, okay, Nebraska. Nebraska is expected to have a big win total this year with what their schedule looked like, a lot of home games. So when they play UCLA late in the year, you hit a lot of go big red chants in what I believe is November? I believe late November. So that will be an interesting game when Nebraska comes in. Matt Rule, and then you've got Dylan Raiola in year 2. Should be a better squad, but I still think for UCLA, who beat them last year, well within their right that they could beat them again. Washington, Jed Fish, a program that's rising after their national championship game appearance, but also still bringing in Damon Williams Jr. as their quarterback. So another team that is working in with a new quarterback, but a second-year head coach at that institution. So Washington gets some love. And then the funny one, in my mind, is UNLV. Now, the track record for Dan Mullen is one thing, but they're expecting the portal to work out right away for UNLV. And why can't it work the same for UCLA? Now, UNLV works and plays in a great facility. They play in the Raiders Stadium. I'm not saying that's going to be a raucous atmosphere. Maybe it shocks me. Maybe there could be something crazy out there in Vegas. But UNLV is one of those sneaky week 2 games that UCLA is going to have to navigate with a Mountain West foe. All right? UCLA had to do something similar with that with Hawaii last year in week 1. How they've had to do that in years previous with San Diego State, or mostly Fresno State. This year, it's a newly retooled UNLV team who has made it to the Mountain West Championship game, almost made it to a CFP. Now, it is a different coach, but they're not trying to skip a year of success. They're trying to keep pace with Boise before Boise bounces to the Pac-12, and they're trying to dominate. So a sneaky week 2 matchup. Even Vanderbilt's ranked on the heels of a Diego Pavia rule, right? So that's where it's all kind of interesting. You see, that's all the USA Today coaches polls. That's what the coaches think. Sometimes the coaches are smart, and sometimes coaches, when it comes to rankings, are utterly dumb. You see win totals. UCLA's at 5.5. You see our Locked On network has UCLA as the, 14th, 15th best team in the conference? Now, there is reason for concern with this schedule. Absolutely. But if it's not manageable, I still think UCLA can easily start 4-0. An alarming start would be 1-3 in their first 3 games. And that would mean you have to lose to UNLV on the road or Northwestern. And that would be shocking for UCLA to lose one or both of those games. Obviously, you have New Mexico and Texas. If you start 1-3, you win the New Mexico game, you lose the other 2. But I think UCLA beating Utah is of the most importance. It is imperative the Bruins come away with a week 1 win. 3-1 is nothing to scoff at either, but it just turns the momentum if the Bruins can go out and beat Utah in week 1. If they can just get that win, you got New Mexico, you've got UNLV lined up, and then all of a sudden, a good Big Ten opener at Northwestern. I know Northwestern would like to shock some people. They're a couple years removed from a lot of wins before the Big Ten and Pac-12 schools jumped in. So it'll be an interesting year for UCLA coming up in the Big Ten and in the non-conference with some sneaky tough matchups. Next, though, we're going to talk who is joining the roster this late in the year, who still might and who will not, next on Locked On UCLA. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies, making memories with friends, this is a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that energy boost to stay sharp and energized, right? And you're like, what's the weirdest thing you've been doing? Well, hey, let's go with 5 Hour Energy, because you think about this, golf's all about the good times, the good people, good flavors. Well, the grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to, and you don't got to chase down the beverage cart. So go to 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5hourenergy.com, and you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. Cruising on here in Locked On UCLA. This is what the Bruins got to do. They have been making moves in the portal, and even this late, UCLA has been finding ways to get players and add talented options like Jalen Hargrove. Well, Jalen Hargrove comes from Rice. It's been a while since UCLA even played Rice. I think last time the Bruins played Rice, they went to Rice, and that's when Brett Hundley broke off his first career touchdown run, if I'm not mistaken. And that was many, many years ago, and we had many Brett Hundley memories after that. But now you've got Jalen Hargrove, who comes to UCLA as a redshirt senior. You expect 1 year of eligibility. You never know these days because the next guy or two guys are trying to get more years of eligibility. But Jalen Hargrove is coming to the Bruins with 1 year of eligibility expected, 6'4", 317 pounds, 19 appearances over the last couple of years, and had 1 career tackle last year against Texas Southern. All right, came out of Connecticut. He was a top 10 player out of Connecticut, 3-star, and was a pretty solid, decent ranked guy in the 2021 recruiting back then. This brings UCLA to around 32 transfers, all right? And now that's pending, I believe, with a Cade Robinson acceptance or with his lawsuit going through. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the Bruins continue to add big bodies, big pieces. And DeShaun Foster, what he's talking about through fall camp, has been, we have a needed depth. Think about it last year on the D-line. You lose Keanu Williams, and then after that you lose, I think, another piece, just blanking off the top of my head. But the Bruins lose a couple of pieces on the D-line, and they just can't generate a pass rush on an already depleted pass D-line when it came to rushing the passer. After you lose Leatu Latu, you lose the Murphy twins, you lost a lot of talents from that 23 team heading into 24. And the hope is, yes, minus Jay Tuia, that with the health of the guys on the D-line, better transfer pickups, because the Bruins tried in the previous offseason to address it. But I think what UCLA has coming back, what the depth is, you hope Hargrove, I can't just come out here and say he's going to break down UCLA sales when all of a sudden he wasn't putting up numbers at Rice. But that's a big body, that's a physical dude, and that's a nice guy to have potentially make a shocking play later in the season when you need some depth in the cold at Ohio State, or a big physical body when you're playing a UNLV in week 2. And obviously, with him coming in later in the season, I think he's available to get through and start fall camp. Obviously, it's weird to see players join this late in an off season. It's a changing thing, right? This is turning, as we've seen, college football, college sports into more of a pro sports model. The holdouts, the changes from a spring practice to a spring game, and the kid transfers out. to signing maybe as a free agent, if you will, late in the year, pending eligibility, pending where's the best place, pending if you can get into the school. All right. It's like you have somebody reviewing your, all right, you doing a background check? Well, in school, the background check is your grades. And do you match up with the quarter system, with the academic part at UCLA, which is still a big part of it? DeShaun Foster didn't have a day 2 of fall camp right after day 1 because UCLA had summer quarter finals. That's just different from other people. Now, most of UCLA's players won't be starting or having any rigorous academic classes until late September, but that's just the difference. So you bring in Jalen Hargrove, who around 31 to 32 players in the transfer class. That's a huge transfer class. You're seeing teams like UNLV expect a complete overhaul of the roster and still be competitive, and they're receiving votes. You see Utah, and you're like, they're bringing in a bunch of talent from the transfer portal. You're seeing a lot of teams do that. Well, DeShaun Foster, obviously the big name is Nico, but they have worked at every position of need, whether it was who could start at quarterback this year, switching that option a couple of times, going from Aguilar, and then finding a way to bring Nico over, bringing in backup depth, bringing in pieces all over, and the Bruins have put together a very respectable transfer class with big names and sneaky depth literally into the beginning of August. I didn't think you'd see this much movement in April, and here we are still seeing movement and players join in August of 2025 for this 2025 season. Now, you do have a Cortez Braham Jr., who was thinking about joining UCLA at the end. His decision, he went away from UCLA. He's one of those guys that you're like, okay, these late end-of-career players that could have helped UCLA in the receiver room. Even though I think UCLA's receiver room is just fine, I think a Caden Robinson potential, I'm not sure how likely it is, but his potential could be something. But Cortez Braham was somebody the Bruins were flirting with in the offseason when it came to, UCLA is going after somebody else. It's like, they might get Cortez Braham. They might go after, or they're still pursuing the Caden Robinson opportunity. And then all of a sudden you had Jalen Hargrove commit, and you're like, what? How are they trying to add 2 or 3 guys this late in the season? But that's what they think. They need one more guy in the receiver room. They think, hey, maybe one more opportunity on and in the D line. So they bring in Hargrove. Doesn't have the biggest numbers collegiately, but it's another big body, another piece of depth. Cortez Braham chose not UCLA. And then one more thing, Caden Robinson. Apparently, from what I've read and what I understand, the way his suit is taking place is it's kind of following a similar pattern to Diego Pavia. Because Pavia, the initial something, I'm not as up to date with the legal jargon and everything, he was denied part 1, but at the end was still able to win it and earn himself and many other athletes an extra year or so of play at the NCAA level. Now, I wonder how that's going to change in the years to come. Obviously, we're seeing roster limits in the House settlement needing to be decided too, but Diego Pavia's situation is maybe playing out like Caden Robinson. The problem is Pavia did that right after the season, and that changed everything for a lot of these players from college football to college basketball with the JUCO player ruling. And Caden Robinson, because he started 1 year earlier and was dealing with injuries, couldn't fully pursue the NFL draft, tried to come to UCLA, where he would be clearly the number 1 deep threat option for UCLA and Nico, if that's the case. And the way DeShaun Foster is talking about it, because he can't go too much into detail with all this, he's not an official player on the roster or I think an enrollee at school at all, at least when it comes to as a football player, then the Bruins are like, hey, DeShaun Foster seems very positive with how it's played out. I'm not sure how likely it is. It seems a little odd that you can go and find somebody to get conditioned who's coming off injury and then get him up to date on the playbook legally. And then next thing you know, he's in the lineup by August 30th. If this all plays out to fruition. Now, I like Caden Robinson. If he does come, if he does fit the rotation, he would be a good deep threat. I'm not sure you really need much. Just, hey, if you're in shape, go run a fade, go run up the sidelines, maybe find a seam, and then he's open and go makes a big play happen in week 1, week 2, week 3. It just, the way things are, wasn't moving that way. And then it's also playing out similarly to how Diego Pavia's situation played out. So we'll see how that goes. Right now, I think less than 50% it's likely, but you just never know. These situations are so fickle. They're so weird. I don't even understand what's the difference between a 2019 versus the 2020 because he started JUCO a year earlier. It's so ridiculous. It's like just grant them their 1 year and then just make a general rule across the board and don't allow any 30-year-olds to be playing unless they're coming back from in different situations. But they got to figure this out. The NCAA or whatever institution will. Next, we're talking about the preseason #1 UCLA baseball team. What did they get in the transfer portal? Who is coming in from the high school ranks, and will they play at home? We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. We've all been there, logging on early, waiting forever for those concert tickets to get on sale, those games, maybe it's a postseason. You only lose your spot in the show for a place and a show you've been dying to see. Live music, sports should be all about making memories and not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever, where prices, they actually drop as you get closer to showtime. Game Time, and save up to 60% off with killer last-minute deals. Many times, I have gone to Game Time. It's last minute. I'm like, you know what? I want to go to a game today. It's a little hot outside. I don't think it'll be a big crowd. These prices are going down. I head to Game Time. And Game Time delivers. They've got killer zone deals where you can get the best zone deals, and you can see where you're sitting. You're like, I want to see if I'm sitting in the shade. It's a hot day game. It's a ball game. Where am I sitting? You get to see that option when you're using the panoramic seat view with Game Time. And killer last-minute deals with Game Time as well. And there's Game Time guarantee where it's got your back with cancellation protection and more. Take the guesswork out of buying concert, show tickets, game tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. UCLA baseball 2026 in the spring. Get your tickets. Get your tickets. Get your flights booked. Get your hotels booked for Omaha in 2026 because UCLA has not had a team this hyped, this solid since about 2019. Now, last year, the Bruins, or this last season in 2025, UCLA and John Savage took a step forward, even probably a year earlier than anticipated. The camaraderie built between this team, Rock Chalowski's growth, the entire freshman team turning into a sophomore studded class with a lot of these players piecing it together in the bullpen, piecing it together the weekend rotation, one of the best infields at turning double plays, and a pretty stacked offense moving in, yes, we have to say, at a much weaker conference when it comes to baseball and doing just enough. Got the Bruins hosting in the regional round. An upset led to them hosting in the super regionals. And then they even got a win in Omaha against the upstart team in the first round, which, of course, I'm blanking off the top of my head. But that's what UCLA against Murray State in the College World Series. So you look at it, we're expecting big things in the spring of 2026. UCLA basketball, men's and women's. The softball team on back-to-back Women's College World Series runs, hoping to get there again to Oklahoma City in 2026. But the Bruins, according to Baseball America, according to many national outlets, are one of, if not the #1 team in the country prior to this season even being close to starting in 2026. The Bruins will probably be sitting there in the snow or somewhere cold in early February or March in 2026 for some godforsaken conference matchup in the Big Ten that they have to play early. But here's the thing. UCLA, according to the LA Times article written by Ben Bolch when he talked to the UCLA athletic director Martin Germond, was saying they might actually still be able to play at Jackie Robinson Stadium in 2026. That's what he was telling Ben Bolch of the LA Times, a UCLA beat writer, that, hey, UCLA still might be able to play at home. So for a team that is deserving of a home stadium, especially this year, with all they have returning, the sophomores turning into juniors, of which almost all of them will be draft eligible. There is no Cody Delvecchio, but you've got a lot of returning players, some undrafted, and then you've got Angel Cervantes, who was one of the top right-handers at the high school level, according to UCLA's release that they put out about a week ago, they obviously had signed Cervantes, who decided to forego his second-round draft position with the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think that's a very big missed opportunity by the Pittsburgh Pirates not to sign this kid. And he comes in, he was the number 2 ranked right-hander in the country and one of the top 5 overall prospects in California. And if you looked at the prospects in the state of California, you've got sons of Dodger coaches. You've got players who went top 5 overall, players for one of the best high school teams ever constructed in Corona High School. And you're talking about one of the top 5 players in Cervantes coming. You could argue about how much he's going to impact this team as a true freshman, and maybe he could have made a lot. But, he comes to UCLA for a team starving for pitching talent, no matter how old or underdeveloped or ready or prepared they are for Big Ten play, non-conference play, or D1 play for a team that is preparing to make a World Series run in back-to-back years and maybe, just maybe, win a national championship for the first time since 2013 in baseball. Then you bring in another talented kid that they announced in Dominic Cadiz, I believe I'm saying it correct, who is from Sherman Oaks, went to Notre Dame. Yes, Notre Dame, that's had some of the best, most talented players run through there. I believe you had Hunter Green. I think Giancarlo Stanton went there, if I'm not mistaken. You have a lot of talented players. He was drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers. He was one of the top 5 third basemen in the state of California. And now for a team that is returning 8 starters, did get Will Gasparino, a super physical outfielder in the portal from Texas, with UCLA already looking for very limited spots. That proves they have one of the best lineups, and they have depth to use off the bench, all right? Remember last year, UCLA was playing in a game where one of their pitchers had to pinch hit late in the game and get a big hit that started a rally to win the game. I don't think they're going to have to do that this year. But they got the pitching help in Cervantes. You bring in Cadiz, who comes in, 8 starters from last year's team, and all of a sudden you got a UCLA team that's ready to rock and roll. And oh, by the way, the Bruins, they finally got some transfer portal action, all right? Finally, we get to the end of July, beginning of August, and you're like, is John Savage actually going to reach in the portal and get somebody good? Like all the SEC teams, like quite a bit of these other teams have gone and done to the UCLA roster, specifically from players in the bullpen on the starting weekend rotation. Well, he finally did. UCLA got Logan Redeman from San Diego, the Toreros, all right, out of the WCC, who in 55 innings had an ERA under 2.3. And if you like to believe the hype, at the time of his commitment, was the top-ranked player in the portal. Now you're like, Zach, there's probably only 5 guys left in the portal. But those numbers, 55 innings, you don't throw that many innings in college baseball, but 55 innings, West Coast ball, under 2.3, those are pretty solid numbers. 9 starts in 55 innings, 2.29. And UCLA already has some of the best, most talented players. They needed pitching help. You get a young stud in Cervantes, you bring in a guy like Redeman, and all of a sudden, you hope that there's some growth from last year's roster with what's coming back. And then UCLA with a lineup that is to die for. That's literally 8 starters, and some of them were the best players in the country, like a Rock Chalowski, who would be probably the number 1 pick in the 26th draft. You've got the preseason number 1 team in the country, who, according to Ben Bolcher's article that has Mark Germont saying UCLA might be able to play their home games and not just go play in literally a Great Park in Irvine or somewhere in other parts of LA. They can play at home. This is all starting to mix together perfectly for UCLA. It's looking real good. And it's not like the Big Ten, in my mind, is going to get that much better. Oregon can compete. I think USC's been preparing to compete. Washington will compete. Iowa challenge for a Big Ten crown, but it never seems serious enough that even without them playing UCLA, other than the Big Ten tournament, that they are really going to jump in and steal the number 1 seed from the Bruins. I think UCLA is prepared easily to be at least the number 2 team in the Big Ten, clearly the best team in that conference, let alone the country. All right, and mind you, you got LSU, who's won 2 of the last 3 titles. You got the SEC that's just got a stranglehold on the sport. But the upsets have been anything to tell you. UCLA, I didn't even think they'd get through their own regional, smack through and spank those teams. You saw Murray State, who can only host 600 at their baseball field, make it to Omaha. You saw UTSA go to big, bad, mighty Texas, the 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. Took them down pretty easily. So still anything can happen in baseball, as we saw with that 2019 team that was number 1, and it took a heartbreak from Michigan beating them, now Big Ten foe, to stop them from getting to Omaha. This is a team that's ready to go, that is as tight-knit as it gets, great leadership, and even if they have to play on the road all year long, they will be ready for it. I can guarantee you John Savage, with his contract extension, the Bruins are ready to go. I wholeheartedly believe it. I can't wait for February. I can't wait for August 30th. I can't wait for November. We just need this new year to start, because for a program that's now been in the Big Ten for officially a year, since August 2nd, it's, wow, remarkable. Absolutely remarkable that 10 conference championships between the Big Ten and MPSF teams, the most out of any team in any program in the Big Ten as a whole. The Bruins have been doing big things. I can't wait, because I think next year might be even better, and there might be a couple of natties coming, or at least some fun national moments for the Bruins. But let's challenge for championships. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight by fight. Talking more with Chris Johnson coming up. We got more college football talk with Brian Smith. Stay tuned on Locked On UCLA. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. We'll talk more everything here on Locked On UCLA. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for your support. As always, go Bruins.